Hi, I'm Tim Bradner with Alaska Legislative Digest, and welcome to Capitol News. We're here today with Lori Wing-Heier, the Director of Alaska's Division of Insurance. Welcome, Lori.
Thanks for having me, Tim. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Lori, the division you run, which is part of the Department of Commerce and Economic Development, uh, what you do is you are a consumer protection group in the terms of you help keep insurance rates reasonable, and at the same time you make sure insurance companies have the wherewithal to pay the claims. So it's a second helping to consumers in that respect. Do I describe that accurately?
You're pretty close, Tim. I mean, we're consumer protection. That's what drives us. So while we want to see a competitive market and we want to see a good number of insurers so there's competition that consumers can choose from, solvency is a big concern and we monitor it every day. It's just one of the backbones of our division. It's like behind the green door. Nobody ever sees us doing it, but we're doing it all the time to make sure, like you said, that there's money to pay the claims.
That means making sure the insurance companies have enough cash in the till when the claims come in, they can actually pay the claims.
Absolutely. And you can look at it a variety of different ways of how we look at it. We look at different ratios and such, but the bottom line is there money to pay the claims for, let's say, an individual loss, one home if there were to be a fire, or something like we went through in 2018, where we had the quake and significant damage throughout the central region of Alaska.
Lori, in a case like that, was that such a hit on the insurance industry that it caused rates to go up? Or what was your perspective on that? This was the big earthquake.
Yeah, it did not really cause rates to go up. What they did was they stopped writing quake for a while until we were done with the aftershocks that were causing damage. And unfortunately, consumers, we found that over half the market, probably closer to 75%, did not carry quake coverage. So in that instance, we ended up working with FEMA a great deal for consumers, not just, mom and dad, but also some of the commercial entities, including school districts and municipalities.
It's interesting. We're in an earthquake zone, earthquake country, and yet so many people don't carry earthquake coverage.
It's very much like flood coverage. Most people think it's never going to happen to me. And those that do buy it, I mean, we had lots of calls and conversations of how the deductible applies, because it's not a standard deductible like you would have on your homeowners of $500 or $1,000. It's a percentage of value. And some of them were as high as 20%. And while the home had significant damage, it didn't reach the deductible of 20%. And so when people looked at buying the policy and saw that deductible, they don't buy. And then you have a 2018 event and they wish they had it, but unfortunately they didn't.
Lori, could you give us some perspective of what's happening in the insurance markets and rates generally? I know you cover a lot of different kinds of insurance, but are rates stable? Are they trending up, down with lack of inflation, or?
They're fairly stable right now. We're not seeing any big increases coming out of 2020. We've watched it very carefully. We have been more interested in seeing what 2021 looks like after 2020, but we haven't seen any big increases coming in. And I think there are a lot of reasons that we didn't have losses in 2020. And I think that's what's holding the rates steady. And I'll tell you, part of our concern was as the interest rates have fallen, generally insurance companies make their money to pay claims back, you get the premium, but on interest and in their investments. And they weren't seeing the returns that they would have maybe seen in a different year. So we've been watching it pretty carefully, but it's held kind of flat. I'm not seeing any big changes.
Well, the fact that interest rates were low and the insurance companies didn't make perhaps as much as they had hoped, but are they also invested in equities? I mean, did the recent surge in the stock market help rebuild some of their reserves?
It did, to a degree. They tend to invest rather cautiously. They're pretty conservative in their investments simply because they really can't afford to get into the riskier stocks or the ones that we saw the huge increases in. And so they're more conservative, and that market, like interest, it held stable. It didn't go down like interest, but they didn't make tons of money in that last year.
Interesting. Well, Lori, what's the hot topics of the year? What are you busy with these days?
Well, we've got a lot of new things coming in healthcare. New administration in DC. We're starting to see what the Biden administration is going to give us in healthcare. And it's a challenging time for us. It's not quite as hectic as when the ACA or the Affordable Care Act rolled out, but it's pretty hectic, and we're trying to keep up with them.
In this case, is one of the things that you did a few years ago, which is very interesting, is the high risk pool for Alaskans with very difficult medical conditions who found it very difficult to get insurance. And maybe you could describe just in a minute that we have left, kind of how high risk works.
Well, for us, it worked that we presented to CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, that if we could lower the premium by X amount, would they give us what they call the pass-through? Because Alaska is highly subsidized with low income, so those people that enroll in the individual market get a subsidy. And we said if we could lower the premium so the subsidies were less, would they give us the money for the subsidies to do the reinsurance program? We did, they did, and it's brought premiums down about 20%.
And basically, the way high risk reinsurance works is you subsidize the cost of the policy. The individual policyholder doesn't pay still pays a high premium, but it's a subsidized policy, and at least they can get the coverage. Is that
Absolutely. That's exactly how it works. We're bringing the premium down so people can afford to have the insurance, the healthcare insurance they need.
and part, as I understand, part of it is actually paid by all the insurance companies pool, and they all chip in to the subsidies.
Not for the subsidies in this one. You're thinking of the old ACHIA. For the reinsurance program now, it is strictly funded by the federal government. I think this year we're having to contribute at the state level a little over $1 million to the $79 million pool, but the rest of it was from the federal government.
Well, it's a real example of a success story, and we need more of those.
Yeah, it's coming up for renewal here, so wish me luck.
Well, Lori, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Good to see you again.
Thank you.